Welcome back to a special edition episode of Interjections. We're here to preview the Milan Derby. I've got the full crew with me. Guys, big fixture. Fourth match of the season, fresh off an international break. Only two undefeated teams in the league. Summer hasn't even seen the ball roll past him into the net while he stares there watching. Milan have conceded 2 goals. We've both scored 8. Just can't even begin to explain the importance of this game for the psyche of both teams and the competitive advantage a win would give one over the other. I guess I'll start by asking our resident Milan fan to chime in. So Jay, please tell us all about Milan's start to the season and why you think they're going to win this game 4-0.
Firstly, I don't think they're going to win 4-0. I think they're going to win 3-2. I think it'll be a repeat of that infamous handing over the baton derby of a couple of years ago, where I think we'll score first through Lautaro, and then I think Milan will score 3, and then I think Thuram will grab a late goal to make it 3-2. I think someone agrees with me.
Yeah, Irfan's children do not agree, or do not like that.
Yeah, look, for me, this game is all about the energy of a new look, revamped Milan against a more mature Inter that is another step along its development or evolution compared to last season. I like to think that maturity will give us the edge, and I definitely think we have the tactically superior coach. But against a team like Milan, with the players they have, there's always that fear of being overwhelmed by speed of attack, which is now supported by a much more physical and dynamic and athletic midfield.
That midfield battle will be very interesting to see how it will go, because as you said, there's more physicality now on the Milan side, and we have our tested midfield starting the 3 players.
The numerical advantage will be gone as well, because last season they were playing like a very rigid 4-2-3-1 with 2 holding mids, Tonali and Benessa, whereas now they're playing a 4-3-3 with Krunic and as DM, if I'm not mistaken. So it'll be 3 against 3. The midfielders they've brought in are much more physical. You know, I can see, for example, Ruben Loftus-Cheek kind of matching up against Mkhitaryan much better, physically speaking, obviously faster, younger, taller, stronger. You know, they didn't have that last season.
It's a very optimistic outlook of Milan to start this. Come on. Look, here's the story. Ultimately, they've retooled. They've definitely gotten more physical. They've gotten faster. But the team, the core of that team is still the same. It's still going to come down to Leao taking on defenders, them trying to play Leao into space. And Leao's going to give us the same kind of problems that he's given us every single time we've played them. And so containing him to the best of our abilities is going to be probably the strongest job. Honestly, when you talk about Loftus-Cheek and you talk about Reindeers, I mean, I don't see them as material upgrades over what they've had previously. I mean, they're better players. They're more physical, like you mentioned, but none of them strike me as the kind of difference makers to tilt the scales the way that Leao does for them. And so they're going to be dependent on Leao. They're going to be dependent on Giroud. We'll see what kind of position Giroud's in. He'll probably be pretty well rested since he came back from international duty early. So ultimately, it's going to be a battle. It always is a battle. There's no easy win, even though we had some really good wins last year. But ultimately, I expect us to win. I expect us to hold our own. I expect us to dominate the midfield. What we have to be worried about is just giving Leao any type of space or opportunities. But otherwise, I think we're well positioned. The defense has looked very strong. We looked organized. We attack really well. I think we're going to give Milan a lot of issues. I think they'll be on their back foot quite a bit. It's always hard to say because it's a derby, but, I don't think that Milan deserves the amount of, rosy outlook that you all are giving them already, despite the fact that they've had 3 wins just like us. I think they look very similar to the way they've looked previously. I can't, in the first 3 matches, I don't see that much of a difference between the way they play than the way they were last year.
I think for them,
So-
what they're all saying is we finally have a right wing that can be relied on. Previously they were rotating Junior Macias and Salamakers in that position. Now they've got Pulisic, who's been, I think he scored 2 goals and got an assist in the first 3 games. So, having more weapons than just Leao on the left, having a threat in midfield, deep runs from Loftus-Cheek, etc., and Reinders, and then more outlets in the center and on the right. I think that's their biggest difference.
Pulisic, I agree. Pulisic is probably their best upgrade to what they've had in terms of differences from the status quo. He's a tricky player. He dribbles well. His movement's been really good. He's been very aggressive getting into the box, playing off of the other players, and scored some goals like you mentioned, and done some good setup as well. So yeah, I agree in that sense that in addition to Leao, we're gonna have to keep an eye on Pulisic, and he brings a unique kind of challenge for us. But I still think the way we're set up defensively, I think we can handle that. Leao's still going to be, in my opinion, their danger man, and he's going to be who we're going to have to do a good job of containing. I felt like last year there were a lot of matches, a lot of periods of time where he kind of seemed almost lackadaisical, and I don't see that so far this year. He seems pretty zoned in. So, the international break I think is unfortunate because I think we had such great momentum going into it, and hopefully we'll continue that intensity. It's just it seems like every time we play after an international break, it's like a tough match for us. I think last year, didn't we lose coming out of the international break?
I can't honestly remember.
Well, there were many breaks, so at least once. I remember we lost at least once, but I don't know, was it Udinese right at the start or something?
Yeah, I thought it was Udinese or Lazio. We came right back after the international break and got crushed.
Yeah, you might be right.
The part of this game I'm interested in seeing is tactically Milan have changed their shape from last season. So to Jay's point, it's more of a 4-3-3. And for the longest time, especially when Conte was here, this formation was kind of our kryptonite because you could put 2 speedy wingers behind empty voids in our defense, and you'd have them isolated against center backs. So it would be Leao against Skriniar, whoever on the right against Bastoni. And it was a bit of a disadvantage for us, and we struggled with this formation against all teams, not just Milan. But our center backs now are a lot quicker. Darmian is not a conventional center back, and he's well equipped to handle Leao's pace more so than a Skriniar, obviously. And then Bastoni is super dimensional as a left center back. He's almost a hybrid center back, left back. He's definitely not as fast as Pulisic, but he's shown the ability to keep up with faster wingers, like he kind of did in the Champions League final. I'd be more worried about this in past years if the defense wasn't so, the quickest version of itself. And even Pavard off the bench, if he has to come in, like he's very quick for a center back, and it makes me a little less concerned. And when you think about Milan centrally, Giroud is not the fastest player, so you don't have to worry about them catching an Acerbi or De Vrij on the counter as much. You would hope, even though Giroud has kind of dominated De Vrij in the past. I'm less concerned about Milan's speed as I might have been in the past. The area where we can really exploit is their defense.
Yeah.
Tomori is suspended. He picked up 2 yellows against Roma. I don't know who they're going to replace him with. I would assume Kalulu. Is that fair to say, Jay?
Probably. I think Kia is not being relied upon, so it looks like Kalulu.
So that's a poor defensive line. If you have Teo, Kalulu, Calabria, and then who's their other center back?
Malik Chow.
Yeah. That's a weak defense that we can exploit. And it's probably, if you think of the different positions each team has, their midfield, their attack, their defense, I think Milan's defense is going through the weakest unit on the pitch.
Yeah.
Where sure that especially Teo and Calabria, they're dynamic, they can contribute to attack, but these are not like stalwart defensive players. So we should have plenty of goal scoring opportunities.
I'm just reading the forums that someone's writing that Kalulu has muscle problems and could miss the game, but there's no source for this. But if he's missing game, they're in a big trouble with Lautaro.
Yeah,
At
hopefully.
least
I
I
mean,
feel.
who do they even have? They brought some random Pellegrino or some. I don't even know if he's a centre back actually, but they brought some random young defender, I think.
Yeah, Pellegrino, Marco Pellegrino from
He is a defender.
centre back
Yeah, right.
from Argentina.
Yeah. I mean, of course, they can play Kier, and Kier's not covered himself in glory in most derbies, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Defense is their weakness right now. It's just a matter of getting the ball to their defense, and at the same time, trying not to get caught out at the back. Because we've talked about this previously. Milan do have that kind of just one long ball over the top. You've got Magnan, who's a great ball-playing goalkeeper, like Onana. Very good long kicks out the back. You can very easily find, a Leao in space should he find the ball on a counter-attack, And as Andrew mentioned, 4-3-3 is generally considered a counter to the 3-5-2. And we've seen how far forward Dumfries and DiMarco get. It's inevitable that there's going to be times where Leao is just by himself in acres of space, and you just need to try and avoid situations where he's running at Darmian one-on-one with speed and with, Pulisic and the others charging forward.
Yeah, we need to be very careful in our offensive zone not to give Milan any chances for a quick counters with the long balls or anything like that. I remember a year ago in the derby which we also lost 3-2. I think we conceded the first goal when we had this poor pass in our own zone, and I think those are very, very, very important to not have any miss passes in our own half, because Milan will punish with those ones easily. Leo is he's a game-breaking player, so we just need to contain him. And I think we just need to play him with the two players, Dumfries and Darmian. Need to keep him at bay. And of course, there's Theo then on our right side.
Yeah.
But I actually noticed that Theo has done this before, but in these 3 matches, he's been doing quite a lot of these runs with the ball right in the middle, like in the midfield. He's almost like a midfielder there, and he's not running on the left flank, but right in the middle.
Yeah.
And we need to be very careful to see those before he starts those runs, because it's hard or difficult to stop them. Unfortunately, he's very good with those runs when he gets going.
Just another brilliant tactical innovation from the mind of Stefano Pioli.
One thing that's been heartening, I think, is I feel like Dumfries does pretty well against Milan. Like he holds his own against Theo pretty well. They get into it quite a bit. It's always a very physical match between both of them. But I think Dumfries holds his own, and I think he shows up to play. He's usually pretty amped up to play against Milan and against Theo. So hopefully we'll see that again, because he's had a pretty decent year to start for us. I think he's been a bit of a surprise for a lot of people on international duty and on inter duty. He's been pretty good. So I think if he has a strong match, if he doesn't make a lot of mistakes, if he holds his own pretty well, that'll go a long way in us kind of containing that side.
I'd say Theo has not played well against us in quite some time. And I do give Dumfries most of the credit for that, because he's one of the few players in this league who can match Theo physically. He's a bit of a bully of a player. He's bigger bodied. Dumfries is one of the only players who actually has the ability to kind of give him some of it back. And Theo has just looked uncomfortable in the most recent fixtures. And I honestly can't recall the last good game he had against us. When Milan plays well against Inter, it's almost always Giroud and Leao. It's rarely Theo.
Yep.
Yeah, agreed.
And I think to stop Leao, it's Dumfries is going to be important. Darmian's probably going to be the key, like we all mentioned, and then Hakan. Like he's going to have to get stationed kind of in that defensive role to help out the back line, and it's just going to be like that collective team defense. I'm a little worried about DeMarco defensively.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think it might be. This might be one of those matches where that Pulisic versus DeMarco is a more dangerous mix than the Theo Leal side versus Darmian and Dumfries.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not as worried regarding DeMarco's defending. I can understand. I can understand it, but the way we defend, I think the wing backs aren't as crucial in our defending. We we let some crosses in, but they are pretty early, not deep, but early crosses. If we are in our defensive setup, I haven't seen Pulisic against DeMarco, so it's more reservation for this comment.
We really do need De Vrij to kind of exercise all his demons against Giroud, though. Like this is his. I hope he's fired up. I hope he's ready. I think it was very clear how embarrassed he got by Giroud and kind of sent his whole like existence into turmoil. It seemed like for a while. I really do hope he's fired up. He's ready, and he kind of plays really well against Giroud because he's had a strong start to the year as well. I think the way we play defense, the setup and the team defense, kind of as a unit has really benefited De Vrij. I think he's played really well because of it, and I just hope that continues and doesn't get derailed by Milan.
Yeah, this is his chance for redemption.
Yeah, last season I remember that many times when De Vrij didn't have a good season, and you could see it already when there's like maybe a long ball from Kohli, and then it goes to the striker, and then our center back, in this case De Vrij, is there defending, and he can't like connect to the ball at all or like challenge the striker at all. And I remember that Giroud was like owning him a lot last season when De Vrij played, and I'm gonna pay attention how he will handle those long balls to Giroud. Is he going to like let him play, let Giroud play as he pleases, or can he block him or like stop him doing his stuff?
The midfield battle is really interesting to me in this one because it's two polar opposites. You have Milan's midfield, which I'd characterize as kind of workmen. It's like big physical athletes. I don't think any of them are super strong technical players, whereas our midfield is all it's technically skilled. There's not a ton of athleticism in it. There's not a ton of defensive prowess in it, but they're good at holding possession and they're good at, kind of those lateral passes. It's two opposites. And if we can hold possession, I think we can maybe take some of the steam out of the game and dictate tempo a bit. But if we let Milan's physicality continue to win back possession in the midfield, and that one, is it Reyners? He excels at winning back possession in the few matches I've watched him. If we let them, exert their physicality in the midfield, we could be in for a long day just in terms of them creating numerous chances, winning the ball back, and not letting us run our set formations that we usually like to run in attack.
Yeah, and that, going back to what I said earlier, that's why it's so important that we don't give the ball away cheaply in transition. Especially the first game against Monza, it just felt like the players were almost having too much fun. You know how you play like hacky sack or something and you're trying to keep the ball up without touching the ground. Of course, it seems like that was our approach to counterattacking. Like, let's just counterattack and see how many one-touch passes we can do. But, it's just all too reckless for my liking in the Monza game. And I think the second half against Cagliari as well. So it's much better against Fiorentina. So hopefully we can kind of stay more composed, and we don't have to counterattack every single chance we get. Sometimes it is better to, even if you do have a bit of forward momentum, it is better to put your foot on the ball, just slow it down, let people get back into shape, and then distribute the ball around and, go for a kind of slower build up, even if it means, obviously letting the opposition get back into position, right? So yeah, I think going off what Andrew said, it's important that we don't give away these cheap balls in transition by trying to play too fast and loose on the break.
Yeah, we have to be extremely disciplined. We can't because again, they have that cheat code, right? They have Leao. Like if we're reckless in any way, they're going to exploit us. So like you have to play almost a little more conservative in that sense, just to prevent those chances on the other side. But I think we have the setup and the discipline to be able to do that. So hopefully, that's what we see.
The thing that scares me is Lautaro has a match on it's either Wednesday or Thursday with Argentina. I can't quite recall. And he's going to be getting back late.
It's against fucking Bolivia as well.
Yeah, he's going to be a little jet lagged, and I made a joke about it on our last episode. Artak ceases to function if Lautaro is not on form. So I do worry about that. But he historically, more so than definitely a Lukaku and even a Zeko, he'll show up for a big fixture. So that's why I'm optimistic. Thuram, I'm excited to watch Thuram play in this match because one, it's he picked us over them, kind of validation. But it's also going to be he is one of the few players on our team who fits the mold of a typical Milan player in terms of athleticism and skill sets. So having a player like that on the pitch in our favor against them for once, I'm kind of looking forward to.
I checked that Lautaro plays on Tuesday night, so it's on European time. It's like a Wednesday night. So
so basically a Wednesday morning fixture. Off to fly home. You figure he probably won't be back in Italy until Thursday.
Yeah. So it's not optimal, but
it's better than Wednesday.
Also, yeah. And Pulisic is also playing on the same day, or was it actually a day later? It could have been a day later, so it's not optimal for him either.
Like I said, he's playing in fucking Bolivia as well at 10,000 feet above sea level or something.
I'm not to get into the politics of it, but Argentina is going to play Lautaro for most of the games. It's a World Cup qualifier, whereas the States, we're not playing in anything meaningful right now. We don't have a European qualifier we're playing in. We don't have a World Cup qualifier. I don't think so anyway. At least Pulisic isn't going to play 90 minutes.
Okay. So there's no qualifiers going on for you.
I'm pretty sure it's just a Nations League fixture.
I thought Nations League is UEFA only.
It's USA against Oman. It's a friendly match. So
yeah, there is a CONCACAF Nations League that's in the US has a fixture against it's a friendly against Oman. Pulisic isn't playing 90 minutes in that game, whereas a World Cup qualifier, Lautaro is going to start and he's going to play most of it.
I don't think so. Yeah. I think because he played most of the first game against, I can't even remember, Ecuador or something. But I think the plan was for Lautaro to start that game and play most of it, and then for Julian Alvarez to start the second game and play most of it. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, I don't even know what the situation there is. I thought following the World Cup that Alvarez had kind of displaced Lautaro, but it still seems like he's getting significant minutes. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Just hope that Lautaro doesn't play 70, 80 minutes in the match.
At that altitude.
Yeah. Should be fine. As Andrew mentioned, he's been pretty good at big games and in derbies especially.
Yeah, I mean, look, if worse comes to worse, we can bring an anemic Sanchez off the bench.
He's also playing maybe he's not playing at all. Hopefully he's coming back.
Sanchez can come onto the bench pushing one of those, those IV drips as well.
I wish I could make a bet with a sports book of Sanchez getting hurt and limping off in his World Cup qualifier, because we just know he's going to get hurt somehow, some way. He's not going to be available against Milan, and Arnautovic is going to have to come on and save the day.
But maybe he will. I have a trust in Arnautovic.
So here's my question for you guys. If you look at the squads. What do you think is our biggest vulnerability heading into this game? You can picture it as a player versus another player. You can think about it as a position group. Like, if there's a reason we're going to lose this game, what will it be?
Well, that's a good question. I don't see much weaknesses in our team, to be honest.
I just think goes back to what I said right at the beginning, which is, for Milan, it's like a new look team full of young, not that they were particularly old before, but, full of young-ish, physical and fast players. And they're going to be hyped up following the good start to the season. Whenever you come up against an opponent like that, there's always a chance that you might just get overwhelmed by the challenger. You know what I'm saying? And so that's the only thing I can really think of. If you want to break down the various individual battles or positional contests, then yeah, obviously there's a player like Leao always has that chance to just score some crazy solo goal. You know what I mean? And there's always a chance that a cross might land to Giroud. But those are just like, you play a numbers game when you play football. You know what I mean? You allow a certain amount of crosses into the box, anticipating that one of your three centre backs will clear it. So I'm not too worried about Giroud, and I'm not even too worried about Leao. It's just like our game plan will largely remain the same, whereas theirs has changed to incorporate new physical players. And so last season we managed to pass through their midfield with ease due to a numerical advantage and an advantage in class. This season they've at least made up the numbers gap, and so I wonder, will we run into a brick wall essentially trying to pass through them, and now find that they have more players who are physical and stronger and athletically dynamic?
Yeah, I get you. What about you, Andrew? Do you see some weaknesses in our side?
The only one I have that I'll just pose for you all is Summer has not been tested yet. He has not faced any real volume of shots. I don't think he's had any noteworthy saves. And if we do once again a positional battle, I highly rate Magnan. Like, I view him as the best keeper in this league. I'm just curious how Summer looks. This should be the first game where his net is truly under attack. I'm hoping he's up for the challenge, but I do just worry because we haven't really seen what he's capable of yet in an Inter kit.
Yeah, that's a good shout. He is really untested, but as per my role, I'm not too worried.
Yeah, it's true that he hasn't been tested. He was more tested in the preseason friendlies than he was, or at least the ones he played, than the Serie A games so far. But that visible nervousness has definitely greatly reduced. I think in that first game against, what was it, Leipzig, where we won 5-3 or 4-3 or something, at that hilarious game where there was 3 penalties and missed penalties and whatever. In that game, he just looked all over the shop. He didn't know where to stand. He didn't know when to come out. He didn't know when to pass long, pass short, and all this kind of stuff. At least, if nothing else, that's gone away, at least in the first few games. So that's encouraging. But yeah, it doesn't really speak much as to how ready he is to save lots of shots, but it's a start.
All right, let's get some predictions for the match. Nico, you can start us off with some good news. I'm sure you're expecting a win here.
Yeah, for sure. Even if I agree that Milan has improved their roster, I just don't see them beating us or even drawing us. I think that we will just. I think it will go 2-0, maybe even 3-0. I don't know. What should I say? I say 3-1.
Irfan, what's your prediction for the match?
I'm going with a strong 2-0 win for Inter. I think DeMarco and I'm going to go with Hakan get on the score sheet and we win 2-0. Cagey match, maybe some late goals, but I think we keep the clean sheet and we end up with a dub.
I'm choosing to be optimistic in rare form. There has just been too many overwhelming positives from the first 3 games. As I compare and contrast the way Milan have played, I think they've won 3 penalties, one of which was extremely cheap, one of which was possibly cheap. I'm not sure I've seen enough from their playing style to make me confident that they're going to be able to recreate that in a derby. Whereas, for the most part, the way we've played, I think, is a true indicator of the kind of form and class that we have. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I don't see. I think there are a lot of defensive mismatches in this game. Lautaro and Thuram against Milan's poor center backs pairings. I do worry about Milan's pace on the wings against our center backs, even though our center backs are maybe more equipped for it than they have been in the past. So I think this is going to be a high scoring affair. I'm going to actually predict a 3-2 Inter win.
Cool. I gave my prediction right at the start, which is a 3-2 Milan win. I think we'll score first, and then I think they'll kind of swarm us and unfortunately score a lot, and then we'll get one back.
All right, so we have, in true podcast fashion, we have 3 Inter predictions for victory, and resident Milan fan Jay thinks his boys will get it done for them.
I think there's a potential for a 1-1 as well. I think there could be some early season nerves. Like, if I'm being 100% serious here, I think the two teams could cancel each other out. This is for me one of those games where if we played the game, or you ran the game through like a computer simulation 100 times, I do feel like we'd win more than we lose or draw. But yeah, it could be a draw here.
And I should know this, but I'll ask: who is technically home for this fixture?
Us.
Yeah,
which is another built-in advantage.
Yeah, I think we're set to earn 6 million or something from the ticket sales or from the gate. So yeah, when you're an Inter fan, you have to care about these things.
Yeah, now we'll be able to, give Lukaku a juicy loan fee when he returns next summer.
And that's Sanchez and Arnautovic's wages paid for a year.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to the special edition episode Derby preview. We'll be back after the Derby, of course, recapping with our thoughts. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
All right, see you guys.
Bye.